During class, Viola had quietly lifted the hem of her skirt, briefly exposing the top of her leg. Then she had left her class number in the bottom corner of her textbook, hoping he would understand. Stig wasn't sure what he had seen at first. So after class, he had deliberately stayed behind, using the question as an excuse to be alone with Viola. When he had returned the dictionary to her, he had deliberately allowed the book to lightly brush her leg. Viola had said nothing, just as he had expected, which only heightened his suspicions. When their eyes met, something had happened. This story was no ordinary fairy tale. It was a cruel game of power, growing up, and destruction. The next day, Stig voluntarily offered to go upstairs with Viola to bring teaching materials. During this, he accidentally broke the railing, and Viola rushed to help him. At that very moment, the principal happened to pass by, instantly creating an awkward situation. Later, they walked up the stairs together, exchanging tense glances. Only after returning to the classroom did Stig secretly wipe the trace of lipstick from his lips. Both were convinced they held the key to true love in their hands, not realizing that with this key, they were opening the door to an abyss with no return. Viola is the most popular teacher at the school. She is beautiful, elegant, and possesses the charm of a mature woman. Yet when she is alone, a shadow of unspoken loneliness appears in her eyes, and it is precisely then that Stig enters her life, like a ray of light cutting through the twilight. He is the best student in the class, yet at the same time the most daring teenager. Their first meeting took place on the first day of the school year. In the classroom, the dim light divided the podium in half, into light and shadow. Viola slowly walked between the desks, her gaze gliding over the students' heads until it stopped on Stig. In that moment, when their eyes met, he felt something new and incomprehensible awaken deep within his heart. From then on, he stole brief glances at her profile during lessons and deliberately lingered near the podium just to look at her once more. His clumsy, hidden admiration, under Viola's attentive and perceptive observation, quickly turned into an uncontrollable flame. Every day he spoke with his classmates about adult topics, and after school he compared himself with others. One day, a classmate handed him a piece of chewing gum. Stig shaped it in his mouth and then, using a slingshot, accurately shot at a fly in the classroom. His bold behavior caught Viola's attention. She kept him after class. At first she reprimanded him, explaining that one should not share chewing gum with others, as it can spread diseases. Viola knew perfectly well that Stig was discussing adult topics with his classmates, yet she still instructed him to take out the note that had been passed around in class and read it aloud. The note was so frank in content that Stig did not dare to utter a single word. He stood motionless, confused, and embarrassed. Then Viola impatiently snatched the paper and read it herself. After finishing, she did not get angry, as he had expected, but instead commented on what she had read with evident interest. Stig was stunned. He could never have imagined that she would talk to him about such things calmly, without judgment or disgust. When the tension slightly eased, Viola did not let him leave. Instead, she ordered him to get rid of all the flies in the classroom, supposedly for the sake of order, although this gave her a few more minutes alone with him. While Stig was removing the insects above the blackboard, he stole a glance at Viola. It seemed as though she sensed it. She turned and noticed his gaze but did not reprimand him. On the contrary, she allowed him to continue watching, as if accepting this invisible game. She enjoyed feeling the attention focused on her. From that moment on, Stig sank ever deeper into his obsession with Viola. She behaved like an experienced strategist, carefully observing every one of his reactions. Using her position, she singled him out during lessons, gave him special attention, and sent meaningful signals with just a glance. She often kept him after class and found reasons to meet him in a quiet corner of the library. Stig was drowning in this twisted feeling, convinced that he was the happiest person in the world. He did not realize that, in reality, he was only a means for Viola to soothe her own loneliness and compensate for dissatisfaction in her marriage. Immersed in this story, Stig completely ignored the quiet feelings of the neighbor girl, Lisbeth. She deliberately arranged accidental meetings whenever he left the house, just to exchange a few words with him. He responded politely but hurried on. One day, hurrying to his job at the cinema, he was still 10 minutes late. Fortunately, the job was easy, allowing him to watch films for free. While Stig, absorbed in a film, stood by the candy counter, a hand reached for the sweets. He turned and saw his older brother, Siga. Siga served in the Navy, and Stig admired him because his brother could easily find female companionship wherever he went. Stig dreamed of growing up quickly and becoming just as confident and free. After Viola's initial ambiguous signals, Stig constantly stole glances toward her office, as if hoping to catch the same meaningful look again. Viola noticed how attentively Stig watched her during lessons, and it stirred a mixed feeling in her, curiosity and excitement. Yet their relationship remained complicated, and Stig could only admire the teacher from a distance, hiding his emotions deep in his heart. During exams, when all the students were focused on their tasks, Stig's attention was constantly drawn to Viola. Whenever she passed by him, he tried subtly to get closer, slightly leaning or adjusting his position to see her reaction. Viola had long noticed his little tricks, but she chose not to confront him and simply smiled, allowing him to remain in his world of observation. When the classroom was empty, Stig often looked at the chair where Viola had sat with fascination and curiosity, and when caught, he felt very awkward. Yet this did not stop him from continuing to observe her. Every morning, he watched from a distance as Viola left her room in a bathrobe. Her usual professional appearance changed dramatically, and Stig found something special in this, something that made her even more intriguing. One day, the class monitor was sick, and Viola needed a student to go to the storage room and bring teaching materials. Stig immediately raised his hand and agreed to help. They walked up the stairs one after the other, and Stig could barely take his eyes off the graceful walk of the teacher. While descending, he accidentally brushed against the railing, and Viola rushed to help him, making sure everything was safe. At that moment, the principal happened to pass by, and Viola instinctively pushed Stig slightly to the side so that it all looked natural. Stig, captivated by her presence, felt a mixture of awe and excitement. After that, they returned to the classroom together, exchanging glances full of curiosity and mutual understanding. Stig tried to learn to better interpret the emotions and signals of the adult world, and Viola gradually began to appreciate his sincere interest and eagerness to learn. Over time, Stig was no longer satisfied with mere superficial observations. His attention toward Viola manifested in his desire to improve in his studies and to understand the complex adult world. One day, while the other students were absorbed in watching an air show outside the window, he felt distracted. Viola was not present in class. He decided to visit her to help with teaching materials and to check that everything was all right. His behavior was polite and considerate. He maintained order and tried not to cause any trouble. Viola warned Stig to be careful about her husband. Stig agreed to everything, but just as he was about to leave, he encountered Viola's husband, Kjell. Fortunately, Kjell only glanced back and paid it no mind. Stig became so nervous that he stammered, exchanged a few polite words, and hurried away. However, under the pretext of tutoring, Stig became bolder. In class, he and Viola exchanged innocent, playful glances, seeking small adventures amid the routine of school. After lessons, he eagerly visited her home to help with study materials or discuss difficult tasks. Over time, Stig learned Kjell's schedule, and Viola's house became their regular meeting place for studying and conversation. Sometimes, when he was troubled by assignments, he would come in the evening for guidance and advice. On Viola's birthday, Stig prepared a bouquet of flowers for her. However, before she could arrive, Kjell returned home earlier than expected. Frightened, Stig hid in a corner, afraid of any trouble. Surprisingly, Kjell suspected nothing. On the contrary, he proudly showed Stig where he kept some of his belongings and began talking with him. Kjell worked as a salesman, and the immense pressure of the job sometimes caused him to lose composure. After a few minutes of conversation, Kjell openly shared with Stig the burdens of adult life, speaking about work, difficulties, and his own mistakes. This was the first time Stig truly felt the seriousness and complexity of the adult world. But this situation did not frighten him. On the contrary, it inspired him. One day, when Kjell was occupied, Stig stayed at Viola's house to complete an important task. Viola cared for him, helping him with his studies and leave requests, ensuring that everything was in order. While receiving support from Viola, he began to feel a sense of guilt toward Kjell. After all, when Viola was not around, Kjell spoke to him like a father, shared stories, played music together, and recounted his experiences. Influenced by Kjell, Stig developed an interest in music. He borrowed a record to listen to it at home, but his strict father forbade him from playing it loudly. Then Stig deliberately turned up the volume, This was his first step toward independence and his first conflict with his father. After the argument, he returned to Viola for advice and support. But Shell came home earlier than expected. Stig was anxious, yet Shell sat quietly at the dining table and greeted him with a calm gesture. Later, Stig learned that Shell had been going through a difficult period in life. He had made a mistake that resulted in a significant financial loss, forcing him to find ways to correct the situation. Despite this, Shell did not blame Stig and even accepted his help and support. He decided to review his habits and begin a new stage in life, trying to make up for past mistakes. However, just a few days later, Shell found himself under pressure again. His financial difficulties remained serious, and he had to find a way out to support the family and preserve the house. Stig listened attentively and tried to understand how difficult it can sometimes be for adults to make the right choices. Seeing Shell in such a troubled state, Stig felt an increasingly strong sense of guilt. While Shell was asleep, Viola urged Stig to go to the room to take care of him. This time, Stig acted differently. He went in, took a blanket, and carefully covered Shell, trying to do everything properly. One day, during lunch with the neighbors, Lisbeth invited him into her room. She locked the door, saying that she wanted to show him something interesting. When Stig opened his eyes, she was disappointed in him. She asked him to leave. After this incident, Stig began to reflect on his relationships and his connection with Viola. He no longer sought just interaction with her, but began to explore other interests, such as music, which he had discovered thanks to Shell. He could not understand why Viola did not divorce Shell, even though she knew about his mistakes. From that point on, Stig began to behave differently. After school, he sneaked into the gym and hid inside a vaulting box. Seeing Lisbeth nearby, he quietly passed her a note. Lisbeth quickly sent her friend away and hid inside the box with him. After everyone had left, they emerged, their faces flushed. Stig had finally found a normal friendship and first attractions. But suddenly, a heavy trial struck his family. The military sent an urgent message. The ship on which his brother served had been in an accident. Overwhelmed with grief, Stig hid in the kitchen and tried to cope with his emotions, just like Shell, who was also going through difficult times. The cruelty of growing up pierced his soul. To prevent his mother from worrying, he turned off the radio, which was reporting the news about the accident. But the sound from the neighbor's radio still drifted over. He pretended to help his mother with chores. To mask the sound from next door, he turned the faucet on full blast. However, the more he tried to hide his sorrow, the more his mother sensed that something was wrong. He sat beside her, suppressing his own grief to comfort her. With his father working far away year-round, Stig had to take on part of the responsibility for the family. In the days that followed, he went straight to work at the cinema after class. Viola, feeling the weight of loneliness, could no longer bear it, and came to the cinema where Stig worked. Lisbeth also ended up there, searching for him after school. They all met, and Stig realized that true friendship and first attractions could be complicated and unpredictable, yet at the same time very important for growing up. The next day, he sought out Viola, hoping to put an end to their complicated relationship. She, in turn, behaved unexpectedly aggressively, exerting emotional pressure on Stig to make him obey her demands. Although Stig eventually yielded, Viola sensed his coldness and decided to take decisive action. The following day, she went to the principal and accused Stig, demanding that he be punished. In the principal's office, Stig was unable to effectively defend himself. He rushed to the classroom to find evidence, but when he opened his notebook, he discovered that Viola had already disposed of all the records. He hurried to Viola's house, hoping for support from Shell, who knew everything. However, Shell was still absorbed in his own problems, trying to maintain control over himself. Seeing his weakness and despair, Stig realized that he no longer had any options. He returned to the classroom, silently preparing for possible punishment. But unexpectedly, news arrived. His brother's body had been found. The family's last hope was extinguished. Stig stayed at the cinema all day, unable to take his eyes off the short film showing the rescue of his brother from the water. He had once dreamed of growing up to be like his brother, but now his brother had permanently left this world. At the memorial service, everyone stood in silence. The funeral melody played slowly, seeming extraordinarily sad in that moment. On the way home, his mother mentioned for the first time the possibility of Stig being expelled from school. However, she did not blame him. On the contrary, she blamed herself. During this time, Stig felt that he was truly growing up. Subconsciously, he looked for his father, but he was not in his usual place. After a brief search, he found his father standing alone at the rear of the train car. Although his father was often far away because of work, his love for his son proved deeper than anyone else's. His father sang the funeral melody loudly and with a hoarse voice, as if trying to spend a little more time with his son. For the first time, Stig saw the fragile human side of his father, and finally understood that growing up was not as mysterious as he had imagined. To completely sever ties with Viola, Stig decisively entered the assembly hall and went straight to her. He firmly demonstrated his position in front of everyone, causing Viola to avert her gaze. Having achieved his goal, Stig said nothing more, simply returning to the classroom alone. Those textbooks, which had once been the symbol of their first secret meeting, he now took with him. Finally, he realized that the adult topics that had previously occupied his mind were, in reality, the most ordinary matters in the world. When he truly understands his father, that is the mark of real maturity. All Things Fair was never a film that glorifies forbidden love. Rather, it is a profound fable about growth and redemption. It shows that indulging one's desires can never fill the emptiness of the heart, and that obsession in the name of love often only leads people deeper into the abyss. Adolescent love should be like a gardenia in the sunlight, pure and beautiful. But if it is clouded by selfishness or misguided desires, it transforms into a twisted, poisonous flower that brings pain to others and to oneself. The strength of this film lies in the fact that it does not simply portray Viola as an irredeemable villain, nor define Stig merely as an innocent victim. Viola embodies the shadows of countless women trapped by marriage and by the era they lived in. She longs for freedom but lacks the courage to face life head-on, and through misguided choices, she sinks deeper into her own problems and inner conflicts. Stig's audacity and persistence are inevitable expressions of youth, carrying the unique confidence and innocence of adolescence. He believed that love could overcome all worldly barriers, yet he did not comprehend the weight of reality and the complexity of human nature. This forbidden attachment serves more as a mirror, reflecting the emptiness and confusion in people's hearts against the backdrop of World War II. The dark clouds of war press on everyone's heart, and life seems directionless. Some seek solace in indulging their desires, while others look for comfort in naive and innocent relationships. But in the end, it is all in vain.